welcome to Tuesday's edition of Cracking the Cryptic on another busy day for the channel today. I think we're speaking to one of the Oxford University newspapers later on tonight, Mark and me, and we've got I've been contacted by Tom Scott's new channel, which is interesting indeed. And I've got this puzzle for you, which is quite beautiful looking. When the testers sent me this, I was absolutely blown away by the look of it, and I looked it up on Logic Masters Germany, and let me show you this. Now, the rating is the really interesting thing. 100%. That is a hard one rating. I'm going to gloss over the difficulty at 5 stars out of 5. That is a bit daunting, to be honest. This might be a very long video. You'll know better than me, because if you're watching this, you'll know how hard I found it. If you're not watching it, it's because I failed to solve it, which is very possible. It's called Nexus. And I think we can see why. There's sort of a nexus being created by the killer cages, and these are between lines today. So I'll read you the rules of this one in just a moment. What did I want to mention? Yeah, check out our new app, SUDOKU PAD. Our programmer Sven's been working so hard on that recently, basically because it's the question we get asked the most often. Please, can we put our puzzles in your software? Well, now you can. Any classic Sudoku that you find anywhere or create yourselves, you can play in our software. Just get SUDOKU PAD. It's available already on Android, on Apple, on Amazon. And if you do enjoy it, please do give it a nice review. We would be grateful. It tends to improve the way these things get marketed by the machines. And we have lots of new content coming on SUDOKU PAD very soon, including exclusive puzzles, which we will tweet about in due course. That will either be at the end of this week or the start of next week. So exciting times. Right, with that said, let's get to the rules of this one. What are they? Well, they are normal Sudoku rules apply. In cages, digits must sum to the small clue in the top left corner of the cage, and digits on a purple line must be between the values in the circled ends of that line. So you can see that we've got, well, it's quite interesting straight away. All of the between lines are exactly the same length and sort of have the same geometrical property, don't they? They sort of have a kink and then continue on. But let's look at this line. So let's imagine that was 5, 6 and 7 on the line. Then we would know that, well, we'd have to work out whether this was a high or a low digit. Let's imagine that was a 3. Now this square would then have to be higher than 7, because there's a 7 on the line, and we need a high digit in order to sort of capture the middling digits that have appeared on the line. So we have to make sure that the contents of the line are strictly between whatever we put in the ends. And that's how it works. Do have a go. The way to play is to click the link under the video. Now I get to play. Let's get cracking. Now I have to say I have a bit of a blind spot when it comes to between lines puzzles, in that I don't have a very good feel for them. I mean, let's state the obvious. You can never put a 1 or a 9 on a between line, because obviously you can never put 0 or 10 in the circles. So there is a sort of THERMO type restriction to them. Yeah, and there are okay, and there are also geometric considerations, like this square here. Where does that go in box 3? Well, by Sudoku it can't go in those squares, and because it can't be on its own between line or in the other circle, I mean that's fairly obvious. Hopefully, you know, if you go like that, definitely you're going to struggle to make sure that those digits there are between 7 and 7. So whatever goes in this square here can't actually go in any of those 6 cells and must go down there, which means it's also in one of those 3 squares. And that logic looks to me, at first blush, like it almost applies throughout the grid, like this square can't be in those 6 squares. So this square goes in one of those 3, and therefore in one of those 3. So perhaps there's a place where we can find a circle that's either in a high or a low cage, which gets transposed into a, you know, the opposite size cage. Although actually none of these cages look like they're quite the right disposition to make that work. That one has to go in one of these, and therefore one of those. But even if it's in the 22 cage, it's in a 19 cage as well, which is not, you know, that implies probably both digits are going to be relatively high. Oh dear. A 22 cage has got to have a 9 in it. But again, that's sort of the least surprising thing in Christendom, isn't it? Because if there was a 9 in a circle, that really wouldn't be a surprise. It would give them maximum flexibility on the lines. I suppose it might suggest this digit has to be low. And that might put pressure on the 17 cage. Do we know that this is not a high digit? If that's a high digit, that would have to be a low digit. Ah, yeah, okay. Maybe that's how we start. If that's a high digit, because this has to be at least a 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, that. Oh, I see. That breaks the box. Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's have a look at this box and this line here. I think I can prove this is low because those squares there have got to be 5, 6, 7, 8s and 9s in some order, because the cage is either a 5, 8, 9 cage or a 6, 7, 9 cage. So this digit is a relatively high number. Now the question I was asking is it possible this is a high number? And I think the answer is no, because the only way that I could make this high would be if it's a 9, because that could then be a 5, and we would have enough room for a 6, 7, 8 triple to lie between the 5 and the 9. But we've now broken this box, because there are too many cells in this box that have to be 6, 7s, 8s and 9s. There's obviously only four digits, 6, 7, 8 and 9, and there are 5 cells we'd need to fill with those digits in the box. So this is not a high number. Now, if it's therefore a low number, let's get rid of that 5. We don't know what this digit is. Yeah, okay, this is interesting. So whatever is in this cage here, we can't have more than 2 of these 3 digits being 5, 6, 7, 8s and 9s. Because if we do, we'll have 6 cells, and we'll have to select those 6 cells from just 5 different numbers. So one of those digits on this purple line here must be a 4 or lower, which means that this square must be a 3 or lower in order to catch the 4 and obey the between line constraints. So that square... Yeah, right. Now I see what's going on. Now we can do the geometry trick, finally, in the bottom left of the grid. Where does this square go in box 7? It doesn't go there, it doesn't go on its own between line, and it can't be in this other circle to a between line, and it can't be in those squares, so that square is a 1, 2 or a 3. Now that's nearly getting attacked by a fly. It's not Maverick, it's a fly. So, oh no, that's not a 1, 2, 3 triple. We just know that these 2 squares are the same. I'll colour them in. And they go in one of those 3 squares. Do we know which one? That's the question. No. I think it's the short answer. I don't think I know, do I? I mean, if I knew this was a 1, I could rule it out of this. In fact, if I knew this was a 1, it would have to go here, because it couldn't go in the 19 cage by maths, and it couldn't go on a between line because of the 0 problem. So... Oh yeah, the other thing we could think about is whether we can generate lots of 5, 6, 7s, 8s, 9s. I can now hear Maverick. Not only is it the fly, Maverick is also on the scene today. Here he comes now. Yeah, if this is a maximum of 3, this is a minimum of 14. So we must be making these digits here out of digits that are at least 5, because obviously if we try and put 4 in one of these two squares, we'll need a 10, which we can't put in any cell of a Sudoku, or at least not this Sudoku. So does that mean this is a low digit? I don't know. Probably we can do the same trick again, actually. I'm just wondering, if I try and make this a high digit, aren't I going to run... Ooh. Am I not going to run into exactly the same problem again? If I go 9 here and try and make this 6, 7, 8... Oh, this is really tricky. This is really tricky. Yeah, if this is 9, this has to be 6, 7, 8. This has to be 5. And although we have got a 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 quintuple, which looks at first blush like it works, this square would have to be a 9, and it can't be. Good grief. So this square here is not a high digit. By a high digit, I mean it's not a 5, 6, 7, 8 or 9. I mean, obviously, hopefully it's obvious anyway, you can't try 8 here, because this now has no possible value, because you'd have to go 7, 6, 5 there, and this needs to be a low digit. So the only way this can be a high digit is if it's 9, and it can't be 9 because of this square. So this is not... So this is a... Well, it's not a 1, actually, because it's in a 19 cage. That's a 2, 3, or a 4. Oh, this is beautiful. That is beautiful. Right, forget what I was saying about whether these were 1s, because that would put a 1 there. These definitely are not 1s, because actually this and this and this are the same digit. How do I know that these 3 are the same digit? Well, look, we can do the geometry trick on this box. Whatever goes in there now can't be in those squares, can't be in these squares, so it's in one of those 3 squares, and it's a 2, 3, or a 4. So in box 7, where do we put the digit? It has to be in one of those 3 squares that is a 2, 3, or a 4. Well, only in this square. So now actually we can remove a 1 from both of those squares, and we can remove a 4 from this square, because by hook or by crook we've basically narrowed these down to 2s and 3s, and that's going to put pressure on this cage, I think. If this is a 2, that's an 8-9 pair. If it's a 3, it's a 7-9 pair. So we've now definitely got a 9 in this domino. Oh, nearly. We can nearly lock a 9 into box 8, because 9 can't go there. 9 can never be on the between line. So 9 is in one of those 3 cells in box 8, which is nearly good, but I don't think it's quite good enough. Okay. Now what did we get rid of? We had 1, 2, and 3 in there, didn't we? So now we've got rid of 1. Oh, I see. That's not helpful. Bother. Okay. So what do we do next? I have not got a clue. I'm tempted to come and look at this one. Don't know if that's sensible or not. That's in an 11 cage. So the 11 cage is implying this is probably low, and this, well, this is high, yes. So this is a relatively low number. If this was a maximum of 9, this is 5 or less, isn't it? Yeah, that is not a big restriction. Oh no. Well, this is weird, isn't it? Because it was very much running along the lines of this box leading onto this box leading onto this box. But I don't like this square at all. Whatever goes in this square has to go in one of those 3 squares. No, I don't like it. Sorry. Ah, okay. Okay. Ah, huge. Huge. Where does 1 go in this box? It can't go on a between line. So I think it's in that domino. And where does that mean it goes in box 8? Well, I think, because it can't go on the between line, it's got to go in exactly that square. And that means that this square is a 1, I think. This is startling. Right, so now we've got a digit, I think, here. And I think this has to be a 1. Do the same logic. Because you can't put it on the between line. But also, we've now locked the 9 over into the 17 cage, haven't we? Which might be important. Hang on a minute. Let me just think about this for a second, if you don't mind. I'm trying to get my head around what this means. So, 1s. We've either got 2s in these squares or we've got 3s in these squares. 3 here would force minimum of 4, 5, 6 here. Minimum of 7 here. Three here would force this square. 3 here, 3 here. Ah. Ah. Oh, golly, this is not easy. Okay, this is not an easy trick. But, yeah, but this works, I think. If we go 3s in our orange squares, where are you going to put 2 in box 7? Well, because you've got a 3 on this between line and it's the low digit, you can't put 2 on the line. So you're going to have to put the 2 here. But now there's nowhere to put a 2 in box 8. If this is a 3 and there's a 2 here, we need to put a 2 on the between line. But we know that this is a 3 because it's the same as these 2 digits. Let me do that longhand just so everyone's clear. If we go 3s like this, now you have to go 1, 2 pair here, and there's just nowhere for a 2 in this box. So it just doesn't work. So that is perhaps helpful, because that means I now know that these are 2s, which means I know that this, look, is an 8, 9 pair now. Don't know if that matters or not. Oh, right, now I've got 2 and 9 in my 17 cage. So I must, what else do I need? I need a 6. So this now, we now know is a 6, 9 pair. This is fascinating so far. So I've got a 6, 9 pair. Do I know anything more about this box? Not really. Oh, and this 8 means I've got to put 8 on the between line here. And if I've got to put 8 on the between line, what does this square have to be? Well, it's not going to be able to be 6 anymore. So that's a 9, and this is a 6. And now that's a 9 by Sudoku. We know there's a 9 in the 22 cage. Wow, okay. Okay, so these 2 squares are adding up to 13. They're either 6, 7 or 5, 8. And these between lines now look fairly useless to me, because their ends are too far apart for them to be very restricted. So what have we actually learned that's new? We've got a 2 here. Does that 2 do anything for anybody? Ooh, nearly maybe in this box. You definitely can't put a 2 in a 21 cage. Oh, in fact, maybe I should have looked at this box earlier, because I'm just wondering about 1s as well. 1, yeah, look. 1 is even more restricted than 2 in this box. 1 can't be on the between line full stop, so 1 is in one of those 2 squares. Oh, this is gorgeous, and now this 1 sees both ends of that between line. So where does the 2 go now? The 2 is subject to exactly the same condition of the 1 now, because I can't put it in the 21 cage, and I can't put it on this between line because you'll need to put a 1 in one end, and you can't put a 1 in one end because of the 1 pencil mark. So now that becomes a 1-2 pair. Good grief. So now, does that mean that's a 3? Yes, it does. Wow, 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 wow. So you've now got a 1 and a 2 looking at both ends of this between line. So this, what you cannot do now, if you can't put a 1 or a 2 in the ends, we can't have a 3 on the line. And if you can't have a 3 on the line and you can't put it in a 21 cage because the other 2 digits would have to be double 9, you can only put 3 here. That is lovely. So maybe that's putting pressure on that circle. Is that going to be the case? The answer is perhaps. This is at least a 4 now. 4, 5, 6, 7 or 8 in theory. But I'm skeptical about whether it's going to be a high number, because that's going to force that downwards. I mean, it could be as you can fill a 21 cage with 4, 8, 9. Oh dear. Okay. Well, let's look at this cell again now. Because by geometry, it's not in those squares and it's not in those squares. So this square maps onto one of those squares and therefore should be a 1, 2, 8 or 9. And we know it can't be an 8 or a 9. And yeah, it can't be an 8 or a 9 because it has to correspond to this between line. And if it's an 8 or a 9, there's not enough room for the gap. So this is a 1 or a 2. Which unfortunately doesn't rule out this from being an 8. Far from it. It makes it possible this is an 8. I've got a 1, 2 pair now in this column. Bobbins. I don't know what to do. This square is interesting as well, though, isn't it? By Sudoku. Well, geometry and Sudoku on this square. This square can't go in those or those because of the geometry trick. So this square, which can't be a 1 or a 2, it goes in one of those 2 squares. So this is an 8 or a 9. Yeah, here you go. This square here goes into one of those 2 squares and therefore is in one of these 3 squares, but we know that this top square can't be a 1 or a 2, so it's got to go in that square. So those are sort of a mapping, and that's got to be an 8 or a 9. Now I've got an 8, 9 pair in this column. That's the world's most useless 8, 9 pair. But I suppose that's restricting there, right? This is so clever. Everything sort of knits together in this strange way. So this being an 8, 9 pair, let's make it 9, which is the most it could be. That would mean the most these could be would be 8, 7 and 6. So this square, there's no way it can be a 6, 7 or an 8. It simply would be too high to allow these squares to be filled. This is a 4 or a 5, which means this square now, if we minimise those 2, we get 5, so this is a 6, and if we maximise those, we get 7, so that would give us a 4. So this is a 4, 5 or a 6. Yeah, I see. I see. I'm starting. My brain is slowly twisting itself round, understanding this. Now, I've got an 8-9 pair here. So where does 9 go in this box? Well, it can't go on the between line, so it must be in one of those squares. And now, where does 9 go in this box? And that is a good question, because it can't go there. It can never go on the between line. It can't go in any of those squares. So I think that's a 9, which means this is an 8 and that's a 9. Ah, but we can't. Yeah, the 8 is not quite as potent, is it? The 8 could be on this between line. Okay. The 21 cage needs 12 more, which is not 3 9. So this is 4 8 or 5 7. So if it's interesting if it's 5 7. If it's 5 7, it has to go there in box 9. If that's 5 7, you have to put 5 7 here. There would have to be a 7 on this between line, but that's not surprising. Bother. Okay. Oh dear. So what do we do now? I have not got a clue. That is the truth. I have not got a clue what to do. This is such a strange puzzle. There must be a 6 on this between line, because there can't be a 6 in those two squares. Wow. Is there another digit that I should be focusing on which is naturally restricted by what we've done here? These squares now have to be relatively high. That is true. So those squares are 5s, 6s, 7s or 8s, and that one can't be an 8. Oh, good grief! Right, okay. I had not noticed this at all. Sorry if you'd got this. Look at this C pentomino here. Oh, it's really a U pentomino twisted, but anyway, that seems to have to be 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So that is a quintuple on those digits. Right, and that's interesting for this digit. Where does this digit go in this box now? It's got to go there. So they map to each other, and this is a 1 or a 2. That gives me a 1, 2 pair in this column. These two squares are a 3, 9 pair to complete box 6. 3 lives on this between line here now. And that, right, okay, that's good. That is good, because proving this has got a 3 on it means that that can't be a 5, 7 pair. If that's a 5, 7 pair, you'd have to put 3, 5 and 7 into 2 cells of a domino, and that won't work. So we can remove 5 and 7, we get a 4, 8 pair. So these squares now are a 5, 6, 7 triple. So that means I've got a 5, 6, 7, 8 quadruple there, and this is the only place a 4 can go in column 7. Now I've got a 5, 6, 7 triple in column 8. What are these two squares then? Surely they are known. Yeah, okay, yeah, I see. They're a 3, 4 pair. We could have got that from Sudoku. And those squares are a 5, 6, 7 triple. And nope, that's not going to help us. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 triple, 1, 2 pair. Bother. Wow, okay, so, well, I still think we've done quite well, to be honest, to get to this point. This is meant to be a very hard puzzle. That can't be a 6. So far, do I think it's very difficult so far? I do think it's quite difficult, but the adjective I think would be most precise is, well, there are a few adjectives, but it's gorgeous. It's just so, it's intricate, that's for true, but it's very, very clever. Now, oh, look at that. This is 5, 6, 7. So we still don't know whether this is 4 or 8. If it's 4, this becomes an 8 or a 9. And if it's 8... Oh, right, yeah. Here you go. Here's some logic. Which, I'm just proving 1 equals 1 as usual. This has got to be a 3, 4, 8 or 9. Because by geometry, it can't go in those squares by Sudoku or those squares by the between line trick. So it has to live in one of those squares, and the options for these squares are 3, 4, 8 and 9. Which we could have proved a different way by sort of thinking about the 5, 6, 7 trickery and what this digit was. Now, 1 may be restricted in box 2, is it? Because you can't put 1 on the line. So 1 is in one of those 3 squares. One in box 1. 1 in box 1 is also a bit restricted. It's got to be in one of those 2 squares. 2? Well, that definitely can't. Right, actually, where is 2 restricted in box 2? Or not? Can you put it on the between line? If you do, this is the only possibility for a 1. Oh, look, actually, look, I've got a 1 here. Sorry, I didn't spot that. Oh, let me double check the 1s then in box 2. You can't put 1 on the between line. You can't put 1 here by Sudoku. 1 is definitely in this box. So the other 2 squares are adding up to 11. Don't know. I'm not sure I'm getting anything from this. 2 in box 1 is in one of 4 places, 3 of which are on the between line. So if there is a 2 on the between line, you have to put a 1 here. Right, okay. This is also very beautiful. Look at the pencil marking of our 1s and 2s in box 1 and think about it for a moment, because if we try and put a 2 on this between line, the corollary of that is that we must put a 1 in one of the circles. Well, this is not having a circle in it. It's in a 21 cage and it sees 1 already. So that's not the 1. This would have to be the 1. But that is the actual result. So the actual result of putting 1 in here is forcing 2 onto the between line and forcing 1 beneath it, which is impossible. So if you make that a 1, you have to put 1 here to make the 2 work, and you can't do it. So you can't put 1 here. This is not a 1. So that's a 1. And that means that's a 1. And now I can't put a 1 on this between line, which means I can't put a 2 on the line. And that means... no! I was about to say it means that 2 goes here, but it doesn't, does it? 2 could go in one of 2 places. Oh, bother. It was nearly clever. It was nearly clever. Now those 2 squares now add up to 11. So this square... okay. It still doesn't get rid of the 2. What are the options? We need... So if this is 9, this is 2. If this is 8, this is 3. So that's not 8 anymore. If this is 4, this is 7. And this is 3, this is 8. So this is 2, 7, or 8 now. I'm tempted to rule out 7, because isn't that going to make this too low? If that's 7, we know that this has to be lower than 7. So let's make these as high as possible. 6, 5, 4. This would have to be a 3 at least, or 3 as a maximum. And that's impossible, because that's going to break the 21 cage. So get rid of 7 from there, which means get rid of 4 from here. I still don't know the high-low parity of those 2 between lines circles, which is very annoying. Botheration. I'm probably not doing this in the right way. I feel like I feel like I'm jumping about now, whereas before it felt more structured. Or maybe I've got to work upwards from this box. 9. Let's look at 9 in this. I'm sorry, I should have thought about this before. Where does 9 go in box 4? Ah, yeah. Okay, look. Where does 9 go in box 4? That is a good question. Is it in the 13 cage? No, because if it's in the 13 cage, this 13 cage would have to be 139, and it can't be. That's going to break. So the 9 is not there, it's not there, it's not on a between line, it's there. Ah. That means there is a 9, look, in my 21 cage now. Which, I mean, it's probably here, but I don't know it's here. It would actually be better if it was there, because it would fill those 2 digits as well. Don't know. But the 9, I suppose I can use the 9 to do some stuff over there. So those get filled in. 9 in the central box is now restricted to just a domino. 3 here. Has that done anything for me? Oh. Oh, what about that one? Do we know what this one is? It doesn't. Yes. Oh, this is really cool. This is really cool. If we look at the options for this square, the only way this was a high digit was if it was 9, to allow us to put 6, 7, 8 here and 5 here. Well, now this can't be a 9, so this is a low digit. So we're coming down from a maximum of 8 here. 8, if we put 7, 6, 5 on the line, this square is a maximum of 4, and it can't be a 1 or a 2. That's a 3 or a 4. And if this is a minimum, so we can actually put in the options for this line now. They are quite legion, but never mind. Let's do it anyway. 4s, 5s, 6s, or 7s. And we can't put 4 into those squares. I've now got a 5, 6, 7 triple in row 6 out of nowhere. Which doesn't do anything. Well, I suppose it means there's a 7 in one of those 2 squares, which means that square is not a 7. Okay. I've now got a 3 or a 4 in my 13 cage. Still don't know where the 2 goes in this box. Can you put the 2 on the line? If you put the 2 on the line, you've got to put a 1 here. Those 2 have to add up to 12. That'd have to be 4, 8. Okay, right. This is really cunning as well. Let's think about that. Is the 2 on the between line in box 1? The answer is no, because if the 2 is on the between line, what's this square? We know this square is going to be a 1. That means these squares are adding to 12. Well, they're not 3, 9, because we've got a 9 already ruining that party. So they're going to have to be a 4 here and an 8 here. Now, why is this a problem? Well, this 8 here is ruling an 8 out from this square. And now there's no gap between, there's not enough of a gap between the 4 here. Let's max this out at 7. Well, there's only 2 digits between 4 and 7, and we need 3 digits between them. So that doesn't work at all. And that is going to be nice, because if we can rule 2 out of this between line, and we can, we know that the 2 goes there in box 1, which means there's no 2 here. Here we go. And now we've got a 2 here. Now we've got a 9 here. Now we've got a 9 here, I suppose, by Sudoku. Have we got anything more than that? We've got a 2 in one of those 3 squares in the middle by Sudoku. We've got a 2 placed, look, in box 4. Where does 2 go? It's got to go here, which means that's not a 2. And that presumably is going to put some sort of pressure on this digit, Okay, so we know those two digits add to 11. So this is either a 7 or an 8. I don't know if we know which one of those is correct. So we're so close to having a either a quadruple, or we're so close to a triple, we're so close to a quadruple, we're so close to a quintuple, and we get none of them because the world is not fair. Well, 1 has to be in this domino, I suppose. That gives us a 1 at the bottom of the grid. We will take small gestures of kindness from the puzzle and be grateful. 2 and 9 are not very good for limiting the contents of this line. This is a 7 or an 8, so this digit has to be lowish, doesn't it? If that's a 7, that's surely going to break. If this is a 7, you've got to go 6, 5, 4, 3, and you can't put 3 in a 21 cage. That's how to do that. So that's an 8. This is a 3. That's not an 8. Oh, okay. Right, so where does 8 go in this box? It's got to go here. There's got to be a 7 in this domino. This is not an 8 anymore. So if that's not an 8, that's not a 5. And if that's not a 5... Oh, this was never a 5. As soon as this is a 3, we can lock some things in here, can't we? 4, 5, 6 is the minimum, so this is at least a 7. Okay. So this is now 7 or 8. For the 22 cage to work, this is a low digit, so that's not 7 anymore. And I'm jumping around a bit here, but I think now probably the digit to think about is this one, because I think that has to be a 4, because the maximum, I can put in those 3 squares is 5, 6 and 7, and that just allows this to be a 4, which is the absolute minimum it can be, and therefore this becomes an 8. That becomes a 3. 3 is locked in here by Sudoku of all things. 3 and 4 get placed in box 9. Wow, okay, so now there must be a 4 in this domino, there must be a 4 in this domino, and what else can we do with this? We've got a 4, 5, 6, 7, oh, I've got a 5, 6, 7 triple, oh, I see, so I can just place 8 by Sudoku in this box, which means this is a 5, I suppose. That gets rid of a 5 from there. Forces a 5 in there, means that can't be a 5. That can't be a 5. 3 and 8. 5, 6 and 7. Do we know more about the world now than we did before? The answer is almost certainly yes. But we've not quite done this yet, have we? We've got this 3 and 4 figured out. In this box at the bottom, we still have not placed 4s, 6s and 7s. And the between line is not going to help us with that. Oh, this square's a naked single. It sees 4 and 6, so that's a 7. That might be helpful. So, that places 7 there. Yeah, okay, good. Places 7 here. Gives us a 5, 6 pair, which we can't resolve, but we can note that in this triple, the 7 is in this domino, so that's not a 7. Which is useless, never mind. So these are 5. There's 5, 6, 7 triples all over the place. That seems to be the thing that we're getting left with. This 7 is giving us a 5 at the bottom of the grid. This square is now an 8, because it's got to be. That's the only place an 8 can go in row 8. These two squares are a 4, 6 pair. It feels like that should resolve something. It does resolve the 7 here. It gives me a 6 here. So those two squares now are 4s and 7s. And these two squares are 3s and 5s. None of which seem to be resolved, unfortunately. But I still feel that we're doing okay. Sorry, brief interruption. Had to deal with one of the great questions of life, namely whether Mrs. Norris was really a baddie in Harry Potter. These things are things certain people in my house come to blows over. Anyway, I've now sorted it. She is a baddie. And we shall carry on. Where on earth was I? I was doing box 8 apparently. And we can get rid of those. I'll tidy up pencil marks rather than actually doing solving while I try and remember what stage I was at in the puzzle. Oh, I know what I'm going to do. I've got 4 9s pointing at the central box. Look, that's an easy win. 9. How long has that been sitting there for? I hear you ask. Probably a while. That took a position of a 2 as well. So we now get a 2. We get a useful 2. That's doing some work over on the right hand side of the grid. And this 1 is giving us a 2 here, which means my 11 cage is filled. And now we might be off to the races. Let's have a look. That's not a 5 anymore. I sort of feel like we have broken the back of this. I hope that's not famous last words. Those 2 squares there are from 3, 4 and 8 because we've got this funny 5, 6, 7 triple in row 2. So there's definitely a 3 in one of those squares. And that means something potentially. This 5 is, okay, this 5 is looking at a 6 here. 6 and 4, Maverick's doing his fly past again. Now that's got to be a 5. And those 2 squares have got to be 1 and 4, which we can now do. And that means I can place, I've now got 4, I think I've got all the 1s apart from that 1, which is now a right in. Those squares there have got to be a 4, 5 pair. And that might be interesting because the 4s and the 5s are aligning, look. The 4 and the 5 in box 8 have to be in column 5 and 6. So we can ask questions, where do the 4 and 5 go in column 4? They're going to have to be in those squares. And that means that, well, definitely that can't be a 4. Definitely that can't be a 5. Which presumably is helpful somehow, in a way I can't actually tell. No, that's not how to finish it off. What about those 2 squares? They have got to be 3 and 8. So that's an 8. Which means that's not an 8. We're getting through this at a very steady pace. 3 goes here, 3 goes here, 5 goes here. 5, 4, 4, 7. That felt more useful, didn't it? So now if we look up this column, you can see this must be a 6, 7, 8 triple, and we're going to be able to place the 8 here, place the 8 here, place the 4 here, place the 3 here. We need a 7 into this square. We still need a 6 in box 5. Now we need a 6 or a 7 into this square, and this 7 is playing its role. There we go. Now that's a 7, that's a 7, that's a 6. This is a 6 at the top here, that's a 5, and that's a 5, and that is the last digit in the puzzle, and 4 does look propitious. I think that's it. Yes! What a brilliant puzzle that is. That is just startlingly good. I mean, the whole conceit is brilliant from SUDOKU. The idea that you can sort of connect between lines, between points in cages, using identical geometry each time. But the way it sort of spreads out, which I suppose is how it should work, you know, the way that you can sort of get a handle on the value of this using the geometry, and that gets you a bit of a start on this using the geometry, etc. It's just gorgeous. It really is a stunning puzzle, and that is why it gets that sort of rating. It was very difficult. Don't disagree with the difficulty. How long has it taken me? The answer, a long time. But also, you know, the 100% rating, you can't quibble with that. It's original and it's brilliant. What more could you ask? I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know in the comments. I do enjoy reading them, especially when they're kind. And we'll be back later with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.